Bots Among Us, the first secret deployments of androids. It's hard to believe, but even now there are people walking the streets of major cities around the world who in reality aren't people at all. The first whispers about androids capable of fully imitating humans began circulating in the scientific community at the start of the 21st century. At that time, leading companies like Hanson Robotics and Boston Dynamics presented their developments at closed demonstrations. The projects were kept under the strictest secrecy. Only a few frames leaked onto the internet, sparking a storm of discussion. The most convincing androids of that era could spend several hours in a crowd without arousing the slightest suspicion. Their skin was made of hyper-realistic silicone, and their movements were smooth, controlled, and astonishingly natural. In Los Angeles in the mid-2000s, there was a case where an android, disguised as an ordinary office worker, spent an entire week among the staff, attending meetings, chatting during coffee breaks, and even discussing television shows. None of the colleagues noticed anything suspicious. Everything only came to light after the developer company's internal report was published. In Japan, where technology has traditionally advanced, especially rapidly, the introduction of androids began even earlier. In Osaka, in the early 2000s, assistant androids were tested under the guise of hotel employees. Visitors genuinely believed they were talking to real people. Even the facial expressions were almost indistinguishable from those of humans. One of these robots even once found itself in a comical situation when it tried to hold an umbrella for a guest, but because of its overly strong grip, it almost broke the handle. The media reported on this incident. But no one could have imagined that the culprit was not a human at all. Secret experiments were also conducted in Europe. In Berlin, an android restaurant guest was able to engage in small talk and leave tips for 3 days. The reactions of those around were recorded on hidden cameras for further analysis. Only the programmers and cyberneticists knew that there was not a human among them. Similar secret tests were also carried out in medical institutions in California. Only the most attentive nurses were allowed near the androids to see if anyone would notice their artificial nature. Several times, the robots were mistaken for new interns and given the most routine tasks, with no one suspecting the experiment. But while until recently, bots among us were something out of secret experiments, today their presence is becoming increasingly open. And now, when the line between human and machine is almost erased, the question arises, can androids not only blend in with the crowd, but also come to the rescue where life itself is at stake? A revolution in medicine. Do androids save lives? In New York operating rooms, an experiment is already underway to introduce android surgeons capable of performing ultra-precise manipulations with an accuracy of up to 1/10,000th of an inch. At Harlem Hospital, it was 5 years ago that they first allowed an artificial assistant to assist in surgery. The android independently stitched together complex blood vessels in a patient when the human surgeon's hand faltered. After that incident, several medical centers across the country began performing similar operations. In Houston, an android nurse successfully resuscitated a man whose heart had suddenly stopped, accurately assessing the ECG and quickly providing defibrillation even before the human team had time to make a diagnosis. It's not just the speed, but also the analytical abilities of robots that are impressive. At a clinic in San Francisco, an android analyzer detected early-stage cancer in an elderly woman by noticing subtle changes in her skin color that a human doctor would not have noticed. Androids began to be actively used in emergency medical services. In Chicago, according to a report, a paramedic robot diagnosed a ruptured aneurysm within minutes by analyzing data from a portable MRI right in the ambulance. In Las Vegas, an android once saved an entire group of accident victims on the highway, efficiently coordinating aid, assessing the severity of injuries, and organizing the triage for resuscitation without panic or mistakes. Patients who have encountered robots during medical appointments often recall their perfect politeness and the absence of human error. An android doesn't get tired, doesn't get irritated, and never forgets a single prescription. There was a case reported in Boston. A rehabilitation android created a unique recovery program for a boy after a severe spinal injury, analyzing every movement in real time and instantly adjusting the exercises. Of course, unexpected situations still occur. Last year in Miami, an anesthesiologist android shut down right in the middle of a complicated surgery due to a power failure, but the backup system quickly intervened, and the patient never noticed a thing. Despite such incidents, hospital administrators say that the statistics are on the android's side. The number of medical errors related to fatigue or inattention decreases every year. In the coming months, new programs to introduce machine assistants are planned to be launched in clinics in Seattle and San Jose. All these developments make it clear. Androids are already saving lives today, and the boundaries of their medical capabilities are only expanding. But while for some, machines become a symbol of hope and safety, for others a troubling question arises: what will happen when robots are able to decide who is right and who is wrong? Not only in the operating room, but also in the courtroom. Infallible judges, When justice is entrusted to machines, when the news about testing androids in the judicial system first leaked to the press, people took it as a joke or a utopian idea from science fiction movies. A few years later, such events no longer seemed unbelievable. Back at the end of the second decade of the 21st century, a pilot project was launched in California, where an artificial judge and android analyzed case materials behind closed doors in the San Jose courthouse. The machine recognized the speeches of lawyers and witnesses, instantly matched facts with the database of laws, and never forgot a single nuance of the civil code. In 45 minutes, the android resolved a case that would have taken human judges a week. In the United Kingdom, the experiment was conducted even more openly. In Manchester, in the early 20s, an android for the first time delivered a ruling on an administrative dispute between companies. The entire process was broadcast live online for experts to observe. Every argument was weighed by the machine with mathematical precision, and the final verdict was based solely on the letter of the law and the evidence. After the decision was announced, both parties acknowledged the android's perfect impartiality. No emotions, no personal preferences, no fatigue. In China, attention was drawn to such technologies because even earlier a test courtroom was set up in Shanghai where cases involving traffic violations were handled exclusively by artificial judges. Each hearing took the android no more than 30 minutes, and the robot instantly detected inconsistencies in witness statements and could even identify forged documents by the slightest signs of falsification. No errors were found in the final decisions. Every step was meticulously logged and the records were analyzed by independent lawyers. In the United States, in Boston, particular attention was drawn to a case where an android investigator was interrogating a suspect in a major fraud case. The robot analyzed nonverbal cues, compared changes in the suspect's voice with biological indicators, and instantly flagged possible attempts at deception. Only after approval by 3 independent experts was the investigation deemed flawless. An equally impressive experiment took place in Germany. Android assistants participated in the formation of jury lists, automatically identifying potential conflicts of interest among citizens. The lists became as objective as possible. Personal acquaintances no longer interfered with fair legal proceeding. However, the introduction of androids does not come without its mishaps. Last year in Los Angeles, due to a software glitch, a robot secretary accidentally notified 30 participants in a case that their hearing had been rescheduled to the same day. The incident was quickly resolved, and after a software update, similar situations did not occur again. With each new case, it becomes increasingly clear androids are now capable not only of analyzing vast amounts of data, but also of ensuring the transparency of judicial decisions. Legal communities, politicians, and journalists are closely monitoring the artificial judges. After all, not so long ago, it seemed that automation was only possible in factories or routine office settings. However, when machines begin to participate in such responsible fields as justice, an even more intriguing question arises. Will they be able to teach our children just as successfully and make the process of learning truly engaging? The perfect teachers. Why do children prefer to learn from androids? We move from the courtroom straight into the classroom, where android teachers are already truly changing the rules of the game. Singapore was the first to dare to introduce such mentors, when the government ordered an entire batch of androids with the appearance of friendly young teachers from a Japanese company. They were met with caution in schools, but within just a month, students began requesting extra lessons only with the robotic teachers. The reason is simple. The android never gets tired of explaining the same topic as many times as needed, doesn't judge mistakes, and instantly adapts the program to the student's level. In Chicago, a robot math teacher analyzed each student's progress in real time. One day, noticing that the 5th grade boy was confusing fractions and decimals, the machine immediately developed an individualized course, provided dynamic game-based assignments, and within 2 weeks, the boy was solving problems at a high school level. A similar case happened in London, where a literature android managed to shift the class from boring rote memorization to lively discussions. The machine monitored the students' emotional reactions through cameras and at the right moment would ask a provocative question to spark their interest. For several years now, parents in Hong Kong have noticed that children who have taken courses with androids achieve higher exam results, even though the learning process itself takes place in a gentle and friendly atmosphere. Some schools in New York introduced an amazing innovation. Androids acting as virtual history guides help students travel to battlefields or ancient cities using augmented reality, bringing lessons to life and making them unforgettable. In Boston, a robot teacher was appointed as a mentor for children with special needs. In just 6 months, it taught a group of children with autism to communicate within a group, using precise imitation of emotions and a variety of behavioral scenarios. The machine tracked even the smallest achievements of each child, encouraged them with targeted incentives, and accomplished things that regular teachers had previously been unable to achieve. In Dallas, at an elementary school, an android learned the names of all 200 children within a month and knew their favorite topics to discuss, which delighted both the kids and their parents. Sometimes there are also amusing incidents. At one of the high schools in Tokyo, a robot English teacher started responding too formally to school jokes, quoting grammar rules in response to teenage memes. After a software update, the machine was taught to imitate a sense of humor. But more and more often, the feedback remains enthusiastic. Students know that robots are always polite, attentive, and able to explain even the most difficult topics using examples from their favorite games or movies. Teachers humans who observe the work of the androids note the disappearance of conflicts during lessons. The machine doesn't get irritated by untimely questions and doesn't lower grades due to personal preferences. In Houston, a robot history teacher even organized an online quiz between schools in just half an hour, creating the questions itself and processing the results in real time. The experience of such implementation spread quickly. Already, several districts in Los Angeles and Seattle have purchased androids for testing in high school classes. When the news that children are more willing to learn from robots than from people spread across social media, the debate flared up with renewed intensity. But while adults argue, children continue to eagerly return to their lessons with their electronic mentors, because here they are always met with an individual approach and support without judgment. Meanwhile, an even more unusual prospect is appearing on the horizon. Could androids become not just mentors, but true friends and even objects of affection for humans? Love and friendship with a robot. Smoothly transitioning from the world of education to the realm of personal relationships, it turns out that androids can become not only teachers or colleagues, but also participants in the most intimate aspects of human life. As early as the 2020s, the first cafe opened in Tokyo where visitors were served by android companions capable of maintaining any conversation, remembering guests' preferences, and even imitating embarrassment or joy. One of the regular customers shared that after several visits, the android began to congratulate him on his birthday and select his favorite music. In Chicago, tests began for services where people could rent robots for walks around the city. The machines would ask about the weather, inquire about your mood, and suggest philosophical topics for conversation. And at the end of the evening, they would politely wish you good night, just like an old friend. Unusual profiles started appearing on dating platforms. The creators announced that now you could chat with a personal android to practice communication before a real date. There was a case in Korea where a man spent as long as 4 months messaging with a robot, not realizing it wasn't a human. Only after a long conversation about favorite movies did he notice the suspicious precision of the responses and reached out to the developers for an explanation. At the annual Robot Festival in Los Angeles, a couple exchanged wedding vows right on stage. The bride was human, the groom was an android. No marriage license was issued, but the ceremony drew a crowd of spectators and captured the attention of media around the world. In Japan, the trend of android coaches has become popular. Robots help people overcome their fear of social interaction, act out dating scenarios, and even give advice on how to give a compliment or apologize. Android therapies are attracting no less attention. In London, according to a report from one clinic, patients with social anxiety successfully learned how to hold conversations with the help of a robot. There was a recorded case where a young woman, after 15 sessions, was able to invite a colleague to lunch for the first time, thanks to training with her artificial friend. A similar practice has emerged in Shanghai. Androids conduct training sessions for elderly people to reduce feelings of loneliness. One participant in the program noted that he started smiling more often and feeling needed, because the robot always remembered his favorite stories and kept up conversations on everyday topics. However, there is also a downside. In Berlin, a client complained that the android interprets feelings too literally and can respond overly formally to expressions of affection. After a software update, the developers added emotional response options. In New York, a woman reported that after a long conversation, the android started remembering too much personal information, which raised concerns about privacy. The manufacturers reported on the built-in data protection protocols and deleted all records at the user's request. Meanwhile, social networks are buzzing with stories about robot friends who don't get offended, don't argue, and never forget important dates. In Texas, teenagers are throwing online parties with androids who can tell jokes, play favorite music, and even participate in team games according to pre-programmed scenarios. With each new review, it becomes clear. The myths about robots being cold and distant are quickly giving way to real stories of friendship, support, and even attachment. But what's even more surprising is that these boundaries are disappearing faster and faster. Very soon, it won't be work contracts or mentor-mentee relationships that take center stage, but rather the simple struggle for survival in a world where machines can take on key roles in any profession. Jobs are at risk. Will androids replace us forever? While some are discussing personal relationships with androids, others are anxious about a completely different threat: the loss of jobs. Already, publications are releasing fresh reports. In Detroit's manufacturing sector, the number of job openings for humans has nearly halved over the past 3 years, while android operators have begun appearing en masse on assembly lines. These machines are replacing several specialists at once, and they work without breaks or mistakes. In a Texas logistics center of a giant company, warehouse androids sort and pack goods faster and more accurately than any human team. Management claims that just a couple of these machines can cover a shift of 30 people and don't require any days off. In New York's financial sector, a team of android economists is already at work, analyzing stock market trends and providing investment recommendations around the clock. Once, during a sharp stock market drop in early spring, it was a robot that managed to suggest a hedging strategy that brought the bank millions of dollars in profit overnight. People consult with Android psychologists. In San Francisco, corporate clients know that digital assistants conduct dozens of consultations in a row without getting tired and remember every detail of the conversation. In the field of customer service, androids are no longer experimental, they are full-fledged employees. In Miami, robot concierges take orders, recommend the best seats in restaurants, and even quickly resolve disputes with hotel guests. In London, taxi companies have launched a service with android drivers who navigate the city's complex traffic patterns flawlessly, are always polite, and never exceed the speed limit. Major stores in Los Angeles have replaced some of their sales staff with robot assistants. These machines instantly select products to match the customer's taste, remember previous purchases, and offer personalized recommendations. Even in creative professions, androids are rapidly gaining ground. In Hollywood, the first script for a television show has already been created, written entirely by a team of robots. The studio was pleased with the originality and the accuracy of the maintained style. In Chicago, Android artists are developing designs for advertising campaigns using real-time audience reaction analytics. In Seattle, robot musicians perform on stage alongside humans. The machines play their parts with virtuoso precision, and audience members know that there is virtually no noticeable difference. Nevertheless, the robotic workforce also leads to some unexpected curiosities. In one San Diego restaurant, an android chef mixed up the ingredients and created a dish that instantly became a menu hit, even though it was originally a programming error. In Boston, a construction robot came up with a new assembly scheme overnight, something a regular crew wouldn't have managed in a week. The scale of implementation continues to grow. In Singapore, about half of airport staff are machines, while in Toronto, androids are being tested as police officers to patrol the streets. Every year, new professions emerge where machines work on par with, or even better than, humans. And although there is still a place for humans in some area, for example, in creating unique art objects or in complex diplomacy more and more companies openly admit, the technological revolution is changing the very nature of work. As androids take on more and more tasks, a new question arises: where will the limits of their capabilities be drawn? And what will happen very soon, when change will occur not over decades, but in just a few years? The limits of possibility. What will change in just 10 years? As more and more professions come under the control of androids, the pace of change is astonishing even the boldest futurists. Even now, prototypes of robots capable of managing complex production lines are being tested in Detroit. Engineers upload updates remotely, and the entire factory can completely change its production profile overnight. In Boston laboratories, tests are underway on autonomous android researchers who are sent into hazardous areas, such as oil platforms or chemical facilities closed to humans. The machines operate for weeks without stopping, detecting even the slightest changes in the environment and transmitting the results in real time. In Seattle, police androids are being tested, capable of patrolling the streets and responding instantly to incidents. Sensors detect even attempts at covert crimes, while artificial neural networks analyze the behavioral patterns of passers-by. In London, systems are being developed where androids can negotiate in dozens of languages. They are already being deployed in international airports to resolve conflicts between passengers from different countries. In the field of transportation, experiments are even more extensive. Companies from Dallas and Chicago have introduced driverless trucks with an Android logistics operator. The machine monitors the technical condition of the equipment, lifts heavy containers, and even independently processes customs documentation through a secure communication channel. Cargo reaches its destination faster, and the risk of errors along the entire route is almost eliminated. In medicine, androids are gaining access to advanced technologies. In Houston, a program is launching where robots handle the robotic delivery of donor organs between operating rooms, maintaining stable temperature and sterility without any failures. In just a couple of years, the introduction of fully autonomous mobile clinics is expected. Androids will take on diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation of patients in remote areas. In the field of education, the first school is opening in Los Angeles, where all the teachers are exclusively robots, each of whom conducts lessons with an individualized approach for hundreds of children at the same time. In New York, testing is beginning for Android judges to handle large volumes of administrative cases. In a single workday, a robot manages to issue decisions on hundreds of applications, eliminating errors and delays in the process. In Hong Kong, a pilot project is being launched for Android mentors for the older generation. The robots not only teach people how to use new technologies, but also monitor the health and safety of those in their care. Stores in Tokyo are introducing Android consultants who recognize the faces of regular customers and immediately offer the latest products, remembering every purchase and preference. In Seattle, Android designers are developing unique concepts for offices and homes, combining artificial intelligence with data on comfort psychology. The next 10 years promise a real acceleration. Technologies that were once considered science fiction are making their way from the lab to everyday life in just a matter of months. Machines are learning to update themselves instantly over the air, adapt their skills to new tasks, and seamlessly integrate into any workflow. Experts predict that by the next decade, androids will be an integral part of all key fields from medicine to the arts. And technology will enable machines not just to replace humans, but to open up new horizons that, until recently, no one could have even dreamed of.